Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the conservation of biodiversity in this particular lecture. Students, we have discussed in our previous lectures about the biodiversity. There we have talked about that it is very important to have an energy sources in a diversified way. If we have a diversified energy equipment, then it becomes very easy to protect all the resources, and it also reduces the dependence on one resource. Now, what we mean by the conservation of the biodiversity, it refers to the protection, preservation, management, and restoration of the natural environment and its inhabitants. It involves efforts to maintain and recover ecosystem, species, and genetic diversity to ensure that natural resources are available for future generations. Clear, students? What it leads, its results that you should protect, you should preserve, you should manage, you should restore all the natural environment and its inhabitants, and it requires that effort should be done so that it could be maintained and ecosystem can be recovered, species and genetic diversity can be ensured, and natural resources can be made available for future generation. Conservation practices aim to prevent the extinction of species, sustain ecosystem services, and promote the sustainable use of natural resources while balancing the needs of human development. This includes both. In the conservation process, we include two types of process, that is in situ conservation, that is protecting species in their natural habitat, and ex situ conservation, protecting species by removing part of the population from a threatened habitat and placing it in a new location such as the botanical garden or a zoo. Our India, it is divided into 10 biogeographical zones, each with distinct climate, topography, and species diversity. The Trans-Himalayan region it is a location of cold deserts of Ladakh and Spiti that we have discussed in our last lectures also. Their climate was harsh, cold and arid. If we talk about the flora and fauna of the region, it was sparse vegetation, Tibetan antelope, snow leopard, and migratory birds. This all contains by this particular region. It is called as the Trans-Himalayan region. Next, we have Himalayan region. Its location is in Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh. It varies from subtropical to alpine. It is rich in biodiversity, including coniferous forests, alpine meadows, and species like the red panda, Himalayan tarar, and very medicinal plants. Indian deserts. Its location is Thar Desert in Rajasthan. It is very hot and arid. Drought-resistant plants, camels, desert fox, and various reptiles. Next, we have semi-arid zone. It is on the location of the parts of Gujarat, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Deccan Plateau. Its climate is semi-arid with seasonal rainfall. If we talk about the flora and fauna of these regions, they have the thorn forest, grassland, blackbuck, Indian wolf, and numerous bird species. Next, we have Western Ghat. It is mountain range running parallel to the western coast, tropical to subtropical. Flora and fauna here, this evergreen and deciduous forest, high endemism, species like the lion-tailed macaw, Nilgiri tahar, and a variety of amphibians. Next, we have Deccan Peninsula. Its location is central Indian Plateau region. Its climate is tropical to semi-arid. Flora and fauna of this region is dry deciduous forest, teak and sal trees, Indian elephant, gaur, and various bird species. Next, we have Gangetic Plain, fertile plains of North India, humid subtropical, agriculture land spaces, riverine habitats, species like the Indian rhinoceros, Bengal tiger, and the numerous aquatic species. Next, we have Northeast India. It's located in the states like Assam, Meghalaya, Manipur, Nagaland, Mizoram, Tripura, and Arunachal Pradesh. Climate here is tropical to temperate. If we talk about the flora and fauna of the region, they have the dense forest, high biodiversity, species like the Hulu gibbon, clouded leopard, and a variety of orchids. Coastal regions, location is eastern and western coastal plains. Climate here is tropical maritime. And if we talk about the flora and fauna, they have the mangroves, astores, sea turtles, dugongs, and diverse marine life. If we talk about the islands, location is Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweep Islands. Climate is tropical. If we talk about the flora and fauna of the region, they have coral reef, tropical rainforest, species like the Andaman wood pigeon, Nicobar megapode, and various endemic plants and animals. Now, student, what is the importance of this biodiversity? What is important to conserve this biodiversity? Biodiversity is important to have an ecological balance because it ensures the stability and functioning of ecosystem by maintaining food chains, nutrient cycles, and energy flows. What it ensures? It ensures the stability and functioning of ecosystem because it maintains the food chains. As from the diverse species, we get the diverse food varieties. So if we conserve this biodiversity, obviously this ecosystem will be stable and we have that this diverse food chains can be maintained. We have a proper nutrient cycles and proper flow of energy. Biodiversity, yes, if we have a diverse types of species, it provides various variety of resources such as food, medicine, timber, fibers, and fuels. And it also supports the industries like agriculture, pharmaceuticals, and tourism. Many cultures and religions value biodiversity for spiritual, aesthetic, and recreational purposes. Traditional knowledge and practices are often linked to biodiversity. Scientific research. Biodiversity offers a vast resource for scientific research, helping in the discovery of new medicines, agricultural innovations, and environmental monitoring. Biodiversity, what offers? It offers a vast resource for scientific research. It helps in the discovery of new medicines. It helps for the agricultural innovations and environmental monitoring. Biodiverse ecosystems play a crucial role in carbon sequestration, climate regulation, and mitigation of natural disasters like flood and storms. You are seeing, students, the one thing is coming into your mind that how a biodiversity will lead to all this. Yes, students, when we have a different type of species, when we have a different types of animals that are producing different types of products, they are providing different type of resources. Yes, it helps in discovery of new medicines, to do the various innovation related to the agriculture and to monitor the environment. Like in the past time, we have a dinosaurs. Now dinosaurs are not there. It was found out that dinosaurs are the various very good species for protecting the environment. And as we have lost them, the dinosaurs have demolished. So what is happening, students? Something somewhere is lacked. So it is very important to have this diverse species on the environment because everything is for the purpose made by the God. If we are saying that this whole natural climate are made by the God, so everything is for the purpose only. So this biodiverse ecosystem play a crucial role in carbon sequestration, climate regulation, and mitigation of natural disasters like floods and storms. So everything, every a tree, plant, everything that have been made by the God have its purpose on the earth. And if we this that get dissolved, that purpose also get dissolved with it. So we should take protective measures so that it can be conserved and it can be protected for our future generation. Now, what are the various factors who are responsible for loss of biodiversity? The factors that are responsible for loss of biodiversity are conversion of forests, wetlands, and grassland into urban areas. We have discussed this in our previous lectures also, and here we are discussing again because it is in this topic. Conversion of forests, wetland, and grassland into urban areas, agricultural lands, and infrastructure development, which leads to loss of habitat. The pollution that is creating by industrial, agriculture, and urban population that can harm or kill species, disrupt ecosystem, and reduce biodiversity. Alter temperature and precipitation patterns, increase frequency of extreme weather events, and sea level rise, which affect species distribution and ecosystem stability. Unsustainable hunting, fishing, logging, and harvesting of wild plants lead to population declines and extinction. Introduction of non-native species that outcompete, predate, or bring disease to native species disrupt local ecosystem. Breaking up of habitat into smaller, isolated patches due to human activities reduce to generation flow, inbreeding, and local extinction. Now, as we have talked about of the conservation, that there are the two types in which we can conserve the biodiversity. We have discussed that these two types of in situ and off situ. Now, what are these? What are the types of in situ conservation? In situ conservation means that is in the protected areas. That is a national park. That is areas reserved for protection of wildlife and biodiversity. Activities here like hunting and poaching are prohibited. For example, Jim Corbett National Park, Kaziranga National Park, where hunting and poaching are prohibited so that wildlife can be protected and biodiversity can be protected. Wildlife sanctuaries are made, areas where animals are protected in their natural habitat. Certain activities like grazing and wood collection might be allowed. Example, Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary, Mudumalai Wildlife Sanctuary. What in the sanctuaries were done? Animals were in their natural habitat only. Activities are done there, like there the peoples collect the wood and they do grazing, but hunting and all things are not allowed. And the animals and birds are protected there so that their generations can be maintained. Biosphere reserves, large area with a core zone, buffer zone, and transition zone. They aim to conserve genetic diversity and promote sustainable development. For example, Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, Sundarbans Biosphere Reserve. So, in the large area that is with core zone, buffer zone, and transition zone, they aim to conserve genetic diversity so that sustainable development can be promoted. For example, Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve can be there, Sundarban Biosphere Reserve. Next, we have biodiversity hotspots. Reason where significant level of biodiversity that are under threat. India had two such hotspots, that is Western Ghat and the Eastern Himalayas. So these are the regions that have the significant levels of biodiversity and they are under threat. So these are making as a hotspot so that more protection can be given to that types of regions. And the examples of this are Western Ghats and the Eastern Himalayas. Sacred grove, patches of forest conserved by local communities due to religious or cultural significance. For example, that is sacred groves in Meghalaya and Rajasthan. Means these are the part of the forest that local communities have conserved. They are protecting themselves this because they are significantly important that with their religious or their cultural significance. So they are protecting themselves like there were the various sacred groves in Meghalaya and Rajasthan. So these are the various examples for the in situ conservation. Like this, we have the protected areas. For example, we have national park, we have wildlife sanctuaries, we have biosphere reserves. If we talk about the ex situ conservators that we have talked about, if we are seeing here that here I have discussed about ex situ conservative means protecting species by removing part of the population from the threatened habitat and placing it in a new location, such as a botanical garden or a zoo. So here we are discussing only that only. Ex situ conservators means zoos and aquariums. Facilities for breeding and maintaining animal species in controlled environment. They also serve educational and research purposes. For example, it is Mysore Zoo, Tarapurewala, Tarapurewala Aquarium. So here facilities are maintained so that animal species can be maintained, breeding can be done, environment is controlled. But these places are also used for the education purpose and for the research purpose. They have the various certain examples like we have Mysore Zoo and a Tarapurewala Aquarium. Next, we have botanical gardens and seed banks. Places where plant species are grown for conservation and research. Seed banks store seeds to preserve genetic diversity. These are the places where plant species are grown for conservation and research. Seed banks store seeds to preserve genetic diversity. Plant species are grown for conservation and research, and the banks for the seed they are created so that their diversity can be preserved. For example, we have Indian Botanical Garden in Kolkata, National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources in New Delhi. These we have cryopreservation, preservation of genetic material at very low temperature for future use. Means there the genetic material is preserved at very low temperature so that it can be used for future purpose. Now this we have discussed in our last lecture only also, but here, as in this topic it is given, so I am repeating it again. This is the biogeographical classification of India that we have discussed also. I am repeating it only. This is Trans-Himalayan region, Himalayan region, Indian desert, semi-arid zone, Western Ghat, Deccan Peninsula, Gangetic Plain, Northeast India, coastal regions and islands. Now there were the certain protocols have been made so that this environment can be conserved. That is Montreal Protocol and Kyoto Protocol. The Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer is an international treaty to protect the ozone layer by phasing out the production and consumption of numerous substances responsible for ozone depletion. It was agreed upon on September 16, 1987 and came into force on January 1, 1989. The protocol has been successful in reducing the emission of chlorofluorocarbons and other ozone depleting substances. Amendments and adjustments have been made over time to strengthen the treaty, and most notably the Kigali Amendment in 2016, which aims to phase down hydrochlorocarbons and potent greenhouse gases. Another that is made is Kyoto Protocol. It is an international treaty that extends the 1992 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and committed parties to reduce greenhouse gas emission based on the premise that global warming exists and human-made CO2 emission have caused it. It was adopted on December 11, 1997 and entered into force on February 16, 2005. The protocol sets binding emission reduction targets for 37 industrialized countries and the European Union. The first commitment period of the Kyoto Protocol ended in 2012, and a second commitment was established by Doha Amendment to the Protocol, which extends until 2020. The Convention of Biological Diversity is an international treaty aimed at conserving biological diversity, ensuring sustainable use of its components, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising for genetic resources. Students, these are the various protocols and conventions that have been made to protect this biodiversity. This convention is also made to protect the biodiversity. It is an international treaty which aimed at conserving biological diversity, ensuring sustainable use of its component and fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. It was opened for signature at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro 1992 and entered into force on December 29, 1993. This convention has the three main objectives, that is, conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of its components, fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. Means biological diversity can be conserved, components can have the sustainable use, and benefits can be equitably shared with all genetic resources. The several natural reserves also have been made that are the protected areas that have been designated for the conservation of wildlife and natural habitat. These areas are managed to preserve their ecological integrity and to provide opportunities for scientific research and environmental education. In India, natural reserves include national parks, wildlife sanctuaries that we have discussed earlier only, and biosphere reserves. And examples are Jim Corbett National Park, Sundarban Bioreserve. Now, tribal population and rights in India. India is home to a diverse tribal population with distinct cultures, traditions, and ways of life. The Constitution of India provides several protection and rights for tribal communities also. That includes scheduled tribes recognized in the Constitution. Scheduled tribes are entitled to affirmative action programs in education, employment, and political representation. Forest Right Act, also the Scheduled Tribes and other traditional forest dwellers act with the right of forest driven communities to land and resources. Panchayats, also known as pays extent provision of panchayat system to tribal areas and ensures self-governance. So student, these are the various measures that have been taken for conservation of biodiversity, where we are learning about that biodiversity, that means that protection, conservation and management, in which we have learned about that why this biodiversity is important, what are the various factors that are responsible for loss of biodiversity, what is in situ conservation, what is ex situ conservation, how this biogeographical has been classified, what are the various protocols and conventions that have been made for this conserving the biodiversity. And this biodiversity also includes trial population and right, and these are also protected by the various acts and the various regulations government of India. Thank you students for today for this topic. We discuss next topic